Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. It started on a Tuesday night, late enough that the house was quiet except for the steady hum of the refrigerator. I was working on quarterly reports in the study when I realized I needed an old invoice my wife had stored in our shared email folder. She'd told me the password months ago, back when she asked me to double-check a flight confirmation. I typed it in, not thinking twice, expecting to find nothing more dramatic than spam offers and promotional codes. But when her inbox opened, my eyes caught on a subject line that froze me mid-breath. Draft petition. Confidential. Curiosity isn't always harmless. I clicked, and the message unfolded like a blade. It wasn't from a coworker or a family member. It was addressed to a divorce attorney. The words inside were precise, calculated, cruel in a way only planned betrayal can be. I want to take his business, house, and retirement before he discovers the affairs. The phrasing burned itself into my skull. Not one affair, affairs. Plural. I read it again, slower this time, my hand gripping the mouse so tightly my knuckles ached. She was outlining a plan like a project manager, listing assets, timelines, steps she intended to take. There was no hesitation in her tone. She spoke about me not as a husband, not as someone she had built a life with, but as an obstacle she intended to strip clean before discarding. My office chair felt too small to contain me. The silence of the house pressed in, and the air turned thick with realization. I didn't storm into the bedroom. I didn't shout. Years of building a business had taught me one thing: never act before you have all the information. Instead, I clicked forward and sent the email to myself. Then I opened another folder, found half a dozen more messages, and repeated the process. In them, she was careful, but not careful enough. She detailed meetings, hinted at her partners, and laid out how she wanted her lawyer to freeze accounts so she could drain them in one sweep. My pulse pounded as if I'd run a race, but my thoughts sharpened with every sentence I read. This wasn't just infidelity, this was strategy. Theft dressed in legal language, treachery cloaked in procedure. She wasn't planning to leave me, she was planning to erase me. I copied everything onto a secure drive I kept for business contracts. Then I sat back and stared at the monitor, the glow of the screen reflecting off my glasses. For years, I'd built my company with steady hands, reinvesting every cent, saving diligently for retirement, for our future. She'd been there smiling in photos, clinking glasses at client dinners, acting as though she was a partner in the struggle. All the while, she'd been drafting a heist in slow motion. I didn't sleep that night. I closed the laptop, locked the office door, and sat in the dark. My mind replayed every strange late meeting, every sudden trip, every unexplained expense. Patterns fell into place like puzzle pieces. The puzzle's image wasn't love or partnership, it was betrayal, deliberate and complete. By dawn, I knew what I had to do. I called my attorney, a man who had helped me once during a messy contract dispute. He picked up on the second ring. I told him everything, sent the forwarded emails, and waited while he read them. The silence on the line stretched, then he spoke. "We'll secure your assets first, quietly. Don't tip her off." His calm tone steadied me. For the first time in hours, I felt like I wasn't drowning. Over the next week, I lived a double life. To her, I was the same husband, going to work, coming home, making small talk over dinner. But behind the curtain, I moved every piece of my life into position. My lawyer filed motions, updated account authorizations, and locked down business holdings under my sole signature. Retirement accounts were walled off with new safeguards. The house deed, already in my name, was reinforced with legal filings she couldn't touch. At night, she laughed at her phone, whispered in the hallway when she thought I was asleep, and kissed me absently in the morning before heading out for meetings. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Timing was everything. The final step was personal. I booked a quiet cabin 2 states away, a place with no neighbors and no history attached. When the lawyer confirmed every asset was secure, every account protected, I packed a single bag. I left her a note that said nothing more than, "Gone for a while. Don't wait up." Then I drove away, the city lights fading in my rearview mirror. My phone buzzed with messages, hers, confused at first, then sharp. I turned it off. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt control return to me. I wasn't running, I was waiting. Because when she tried to make her move, when she marched into her lawyer's office with her schemes polished and ready, she would find the ground gone beneath her feet. And the expression on her face when the truth hit, when her lawyer realized every asset was locked beyond her reach, would be the revenge I didn't even have to lift a finger to deliver. That was only the beginning. The cabin was quiet, too quiet sometimes, but the silence was my shield. I woke early, brewed bitter coffee, and read through updates my attorney sent at dawn. Each message was another stone in the wall I was building between her plans and my life's work. One morning he called and said, "She filed, but not what you think. She's already trying to freeze accounts." His tone carried a smile. Too late. Everything's sealed. I pictured her sitting across from her lawyer, expecting a clean sweep, only to be told the accounts were empty, inaccessible, or locked under court orders. The image steadied me. My lawyer added, "Her attorney looked pale when I showed him your forwarded emails." He knew they'd sink her in front of any judge. He told her to settle or risk losing everything. Meanwhile, I kept the act alive. I texted her short replies, vague and calm. She thought I was out of town on business. In truth, I was watching from a distance, building proof upon proof. My attorney had advised, "Don't go dark completely. Let her believe she still has room to maneuver. People show their true selves when they think they're winning." He was right. Within days, I saw transfers attempted, cards declined, new accounts opened in her name, but quickly flagged by the bank thanks to alerts I'd set up. Each failure made her more reckless. She emailed her lawyer again. Messages my attorney intercepted through subpoena, demanding alternative strategies. She sounded frantic, desperate to salvage a crumbling scheme. Then came the dinner. She invited her parents and mine, smiling as though nothing was wrong. She wanted an audience, maybe even sympathy. I let her host it. Midway through, she excused herself, pulled out a card, and told the waiter, "Put it on me," a gesture to prove she was still in control. Seconds later, the waiter returned. Declined. She tried another. Declined. A third. Same result. The room froze. My father raised an eyebrow. Her mother gasped softly. My wife's face turned crimson as she stammered about a bank glitch. I simply sipped my water, calm as stone, while everyone else pieced together the truth she couldn't hide anymore. That night she confronted me in private. "What did you do?" she hissed, trembling. I looked at her the same way she once looked at me when lying, steady, expressionless. "I just protected what was mine," I said. And for the first time, she had no comeback. What she didn't know was that the final blow was still waiting. The hearing date was set, and on that day, in front of a judge, her schemes would be read aloud like scripture, word for word, from her own emails. She thought she was writing her escape plan. She had really written her confession. The courthouse smelled faintly of coffee and old paper, the kind of scent that clings to government buildings where lives are decided in quiet, echoing rooms. I arrived early, dressed in the same steady navy suit I wore when signing contracts for my company. I wanted to look like what I was, composed, professional, unbroken. My lawyer met me at the entrance, his tie neat, his briefcase brimming with quiet weapons, those forwarded emails, bank records, and affidavits filed weeks before. She arrived 10 minutes late, as if still believing the world revolved on her schedule. Her heels clacked sharply against the tile, echoing like misplaced applause. She wore a fitted blazer, hair styled into a careful twist, makeup bold enough to project confidence, but unable to mask the shadows under her eyes. Beside her walked her attorney, a man who looked as though he had not slept in days. His briefcase looked lighter than it should. He'd seen the evidence already. He knew what was coming. She caught my eye across the hall and gave me a tight smile, one that trembled at the corners. It was a smile meant to say, "I'm still in control," but control is fragile when built on lies. Inside the courtroom, the judge called the case. Papers shuffled, pens tapped. The air felt thick with waiting. Her attorney spoke first, launching into a polished introduction about irreconcilable differences and equitable distribution. His words rolled like an expensive perfume, pleasant at first, but quickly cloying. Then my lawyer stood. "Your Honor," he began calmly, "before we proceed with my client's defense, there are documents that need to be entered into the record. They concern the petitioner's stated intentions prior to filing." The judge adjusted her glasses, gesturing for him to continue. He opened the briefcase and laid out the emails, one by one, like cards in a magician's trick. He read from the first. I want to take his business, house, and retirement before he discovers the affairs. The words echoed in the quiet room, crisp and undeniable. Gasps rippled from the benches behind us. Family, co-workers, curious onlookers who had wandered in. My wife's face went white, her painted confidence cracking in real time. Her attorney fumbled, flipping through his notes. These messages are out of context, he tried, voice brittle. My lawyer didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. They are time-stamped, verified through the original email servers. The context is clear. This was not a case of irreconcilable differences. This was premeditated financial sabotage, coupled with multiple extramarital affairs. My client has proof of both. He handed the judge a neatly organized folder with highlighted statements, bank alerts, and transaction attempts, all of which had failed because of the safeguards I'd put in place. The judge's expression hardened. She turned to my wife. Did you write these emails? Silence stretched like a noose. My wife's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Finally, she whispered, yes. It was the softest sound I'd ever heard from her, but it struck like thunder. Her own attorney leaned back, pinched the bridge of his nose, and muttered something under his breath. The rest unfolded like a slow-motion collapse of a building. The judge declared the prenuptial discussions irrelevant since she had actively plotted fraud. The business, my business, remained entirely mine. The house, already under my name, untouchable. Retirement accounts, safeguarded. She was granted nothing beyond minimal support to cover a transition, and even that was questioned given her duplicity. The gavel struck once, final and heavy. Case dismissed in my favor. She sat frozen at the petitioner's table, staring at papers that had once been her blueprint for victory, now transformed into shackles of her own making. The courtroom emptied around her. People whispered, shook their heads, avoided her gaze. Even her parents, who had shown up to support her, left without saying a word. Outside, the sky was a brilliant, mocking blue. My lawyer shook my hand firmly. You played it perfectly. You didn't lash out. You documented, prepared, and let her undo herself. Judges respect that. Juries respect that. Everyone respects that. I thanked him, but my gratitude was quieter than he expected. Because this victory, while absolute on paper, was still built on the ruins of a marriage I had once believed in. Justice doesn't always feel like joy. Sometimes it feels like a clean, sharp emptiness. But the story wasn't over. Not yet. In the weeks that followed, word of the courtroom drama spread through her workplace. At first whispers, then open conversation. The woman who had once toasted her boss as the real man who deserves me was now the subject of jokes in break rooms and threads on office group chats. Her boss, once bold enough to play games behind closed doors, abandoned her completely. He couldn't risk association with someone exposed in public as manipulative and reckless. Without his protection, her career crumbled. Projects vanished. Calls went unanswered. One morning, she arrived at the office to find her access card deactivated. Security escorted her out with a box of belongings. Meanwhile, I rebuilt. The cabin became my temporary sanctuary. But soon I returned to the city, to my workshop, to the steady rhythm of wood and steel. My employees, who had been quietly worried during my absence, welcomed me back with relief. Clients respected the composure I had shown. Some even said it made them trust me more. In an odd twist, her betrayal became a strange kind of advertisement. Here was a man who could endure a storm and not break. Months passed. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was renting a small apartment, struggling to find stable work. The affairs she had once risked everything for had dissolved, leaving nothing but silence. The men who had whispered promises disappeared the moment her power evaporated. She was left alone with her choices, the echo of her own words. I want to take his business, house, and retirement. Haunting her like a ghost. One evening she appeared at my workshop door. She looked older, smaller somehow. Her hair was undone, her blazer wrinkled. I made a mistake, she said, her voice thin, frayed. I didn't stop working. My chisel met the grain with steady strokes, each pass smooth and sure. We all do, I replied. I thought he loved me, she whispered, eyes shining with tears she hadn't earned. I paused, set the chisel down, and finally looked at her. You thought wrong. But worse. You gambled everything we built, and you didn't even blink while you did it. That's not love, that's hunger, and hunger eats itself in the end. She cried then, quiet sobs that filled the corners of the workshop. But I felt nothing, not hatred, not pity, just distance. A canyon carved by choices that could never be bridged. She left without another word. I watched her walk down the street until she was just a shadow swallowed by the dark. That was the last time I saw her. Years later, when people ask why I never remarried, I smile and say, because I already learned what silence sounds like when the truth is finally louder than lies. And they nod, not fully understanding. But that's all right. The story is mine to carry, not theirs. In the end, revenge wasn't fire or fury. It was patience, precision, and proof. It was watching her empire of deception collapse under its own weight, while I walked away, steady, whole, free. Months passed after the courtroom storm, and life settled into a rhythm I hadn't felt in years. My workshop became more than a place of work. It was my refuge, the hum of saws and the scent of polished oak stitching me back together piece by piece. The scandal that once consumed me now lived only in whispers, fading with time. Yet one truth remained. Freedom tastes sharp when you've earned it through fire. Then, one evening, an envelope arrived at my door. No return address, just my name written in her familiar handwriting. Inside was a letter, pages of apologies, pleas, memories she hoped would soften me. She wrote of nights she couldn't sleep, of doors that closed in her face, of the silence left when even her parents turned away. She begged for one more chance, not at love, but at dignity, at forgiveness. I folded the letter neatly and placed it in my notebook beside the very emails she once sent her lawyer. Proof of betrayal on one side, proof of regret on the other, both written by the same hand, years apart. I never replied. Instead, I used her words differently. I began giving talks at small business forums about resilience, about protecting not just assets, but peace of mind. I never named her, never aired the scandal. I spoke only of lessons, patience, preparation, and the power of walking away without rage. People listened. Some nodded with recognition. A few came up after, quietly confessing their own storms. In those moments, I realized revenge had already done its work. Her world collapsed, mine rebuilt stronger. But beyond the courtroom, beyond the silence, came something unexpected. Purpose. I had survived betrayal, yes. But I had also carved from it a story that could warn, guide, and maybe even save others. The past no longer owned me. I did. And as I locked the workshop one quiet night, moonlight on fresh wood, I whispered the words she once used as a weapon. I want to take his business, house, and retirement. And smiled. Because she never did.